be turned off, but not the notification for the calendar. So it's just saying
Oh,
it's time to start.
yeah, that's why
Here
mine's
we
on
are.
mute.
I guess I don't know how to do that part yet.
The challenges of podcasting, shall we say?
Yes, and electronics, period, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. So,
Hi, this is the newsstreamnetwork.com, WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, radio and TV and podcasts, the number one internet singles talk network. And this is Let's Talk Dating with Christine and Barry. Hi, Barry.
hi, Christine.
It was interesting. I was thinking about this title today about, you know, what are ours that are different that might be fun to talk about.
Hmm.
So today we're talking about within a relationship or certainly getting to know somebody while you're dating to see if you want to continue dating them are your dreams and goals for the future opposites, which is how the polar bears showed up, that it could be polar opposites. They could be a little opposite, they could be 180 degrees opposite, they could repel each other like magnets. So we don't want you to get the wrong idea from those cute little polar bears. We're talking about opposite goals and opposite dreams for what
Well,
your personal future is for you personally and for a relationship.
so a couple of quick things. For those who are on the podcast listening, you won't know what we're talking about with polar bears. Just that the show card, if you're watching on YouTube, and I think it may be on Facebook as well, because in
Yes.
case you listen to the podcast, we actually do it on live stream first. So you can do it both places. We had our producer put up a picture of polar bears. So, because the topic was polar opposites, are your dreams and goals of the future opposites? And I actually want to say one, I was holding out for magnets. That's my particular thing, but that's another story entirely. But the other thing is I like to reframe the question more about, are your dreams and goals for the future different versus opposite? Because they may not be polar opposites. They might just be differing in a drastically different direction, perhaps. So
Mhm.
we're going to cover all that in today's episode.
Yes, and it could be what I found interesting with people when I'm coaching them is it could be, oh, we have these differences and they're fine, or there's this one big difference and it's no go. So
Yeah.
that's the other thing of it's always important to look at how much weight does each of these traits or goals or dreams for you personally, for you as a person, and then you as a couple, what are the I can't give on that at all. I mean, this is really essential to me, or yeah, that's not as big a deal as I thought, or gosh, I've gotten all these other good things. Maybe this other thing isn't quite as big a deal, or maybe we can come to good enough close. So we're
Right.
certainly going to cover all of that, the varying degrees about, yeah, not quite so big a deal, and this is a really big deal.
Yeah, and I'd actually go as far as to say that because we've covered in the show before, if you're a loyal listener or watcher, we've covered red flags and green flags before, and this is kind of in the similar boat because some of these things that are so diametrically opposed could fall into your red flag list. So just be
Mhm.
aware of that. Some of them also you might look and go, you know what, it isn't actually a red flag, it's just different. I'm like, can I get around that? Can I consider that option? So all of this is going to be an interesting conversation. So it's going to be fun,
And could different be good?
indeed.
Yes, that's another fun thing. Or
Hmm.
do they just do the same thing differently? A way that you've not ever considered or thought about, the way that they approach something. I mean, uh, this is going to sound off the subject, but I think it will help that when I got laid off from my computer job before I started my event planning company, I worked temporary for a couple years. And it was really amazing to find out how differently so many people could do the same thing. I was fascinated,
Yeah.
fascinated. And I was there to do that job, wasn't my job. So I would learn how to do their way of this thing that I'd done it maybe all by myself, but then I'd also learned it from somebody else. And now I was learning a fifth different way. And sometimes I was like, oh, I can see why it works here, but it wouldn't work other places. Or I can see why that would work better in a lot of places. Or this is so not me, and I would never do this except I have to do it here. And
Right.
so I think that that can really fit with this because if you haven't experienced that much in your life, that you've had, people around you that think the same or believe the same or act the same, and you go, wow, they're thinking that. And sometimes our immediate reaction can be, well, that's wrong because it's different. And it's made me very curious sometimes to go, tell me why. Why do you do it that way? And
Right.
I'm not even thinking good or bad. I'm just so, wow, fascinating that you do it that way. And then when I hear, I get to then decide, is this something I'm comfortable being around? But not to just 86 it in the restaurant business. That means we're out of something. It means you're getting rid of it, that
Right.
you're done, that you wouldn't even imagine being around it. Well, do you know enough to make that decision? And I think in dating, this is really important to
Oh yeah.
just keep asking and learning until you reach a point of, I like it, or it's okay, or no.
Yeah. It's almost like the idea of improv. We say like this and or yes
Yeah,
and, because in some ways
yeah,
what it is, the conversation is because you're exploring. And this is the other part, like you're saying, and I totally agree with you, is that when you go up with somebody and they have a different way of doing something, and you're already presuming it's not going to work for you without even knowing if it is.
yes,
And especially if you're dating and you're dating new people, different people, there's a sense of comfort in staying within your own boundaries, saying your own, not boundaries in the wrong sense, in your own familiarity. And sometimes being on dates can be the best way to get out of that comfort zone and get into a new place of experience, which could be really cool, even though it may look like it's opposite to what you did when you were in your own space before. So, and of course, there are some simple things when you're on your own versus when you're in a couple. Those are opposite conditions. So you'd have to understand that you're changing how you are in the world because you're now accommodating somebody else into your life. So it's
yeah.
good to be aware of the possibilities and be open to what's coming.
How flexible can you be? Because boy,
Hmm.
that's going to be very essential in a relationship. Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah.
My brother and sister-in-law would be married 50 years this year. And
Hmm.
the thing that they talked about today, still from when they very first started dating, was they knew they were going to be fascinated all the time because the other person had diverse interests and were
Hmm.
excited and passionate about them and kept wanting to learn more about them, and we're happy to learn more about what the other person's interest was. And then they've continued to add diverse interests individually and as a couple. And it's why I keep using them as an example, that they still love being together. They really like each other. They're stimulated by each other because they're constantly excited about what the other person's doing. They're excited about where they're doing, and they're like, tell me more about who you saw today and what was that? And especially if it's something they wouldn't even necessarily want to do, except now my brother will go, my sister-in-law is now into crocheting. He goes, I'm going into Michael's and Joann's, but I found stuff to find. But now I'm on a hunt for interesting yarn for her. I mean, you know how guys,
Yeah.
you like to hunt the best stuff down, and he's
Oh,
on a
yeah.
hunt
Yeah.
for yarns now. So he's turned it into something really positive for him, that she's into crocheting now. So
I love.
that's the thing. Thank you. They're so funny together. That when you don't just say no, I think
Hmm.
that's one of the biggest goals about this talk, to get really firm about what your things are and be clear. If you're not moving, you're not moving. And ask anyway. Ask anyway. Because if anything, it might solidify even more about, yeah, that's really, I would never do that. And now I
Right.
even know more reasons why not. Instead of just, dismissing people.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because we've had the conversation before about where like no is a complete sentence and it's okay to say no to certain things. But in this conversation, it's about what about exploring and being open to possibility, like saying yes and the idea. Because the one thing is, and again, bearing in mind red flags and understanding boundaries and everything else too, we're talking about more about dreams and goals and things you want to do. But what crossed my mind earlier is about on the dating apps, because I'm on the dating apps, oftentimes what people post, what women post in, let me say that, because I'm obviously not just checking at the men, I'm checking at the women. But what they post on there, though, oftentimes is they want someone to do certain things with them they already do, which can work. But the skill set, like we're talking about here, like you're saying with your brother and sister-in-law, is their joy from having differences is what makes that relationship work even more. If they did everything the same, and I had this personal thing about when you do everything the same way, it can really flatline the relationship. Talking about the magnets we talked about earlier, I mentioned this in the polarity piece about sexual polarity, how when a couple does everything together, especially if they work and live together, and they don't have diverse interests and divergence of what they do things together, they become comfortable with each other in a way that's not necessarily healthy. The polarity piece, just put this in the conversation, in relationship is what creates the chemistry, creates the sexual attraction. And so if the polarity becomes too demagnetized, to put it that way, because using the magnets as the analogy, breaking it down simply, magnets have North Pole and South Pole. They are opposites to each other. And in relationship chemistry, the polarity piece, the masculine and feminine are the opposite ends of that magnet. But if we get to do the same things all the time together, and we don't have differences of hobbies, habits, preferences, the comfort of that is like putting two magnets together for a long time. The magnetism fades away, which is why a lot of couples, unlike your brother and sister-in-law, become buddies. They lose their sexual chemistry. They lose their joy of being together. They lose their excitement about each other because they're just comfortable, which for some people works. But frankly, for what we're talking about here, it may be lacking something. So this conversation hopefully will give you some ideas, and it's giving us ideas too about how you can add more value to the relationship by having more differences and opposites and possibilities to play with.
And to piggyback on what you were saying, we've talked about before that when people seem sad about it, we just kind of pass in the night and we kind of feel like roommates. It's not a comfortable, it's a dissatisfactory feeling.
Yes.
If you're doing that and you're both happy as clams and you're like, oh, we're just comfortable roommates and we like hanging out together and it's fine, we are not talking to you. I keep hearing about the people that are dissatisfied with that particular arrangement, that they don't feel spark anymore. They don't feel connection anymore. They don't feel interested in the other person. The other person doesn't seem to be interested in them, that they just exist in the same four walls. And that's really sad. So I think that that's a really good point to what things do you do together? And then what things do you do apart? And then come back and discuss it with each other about this new thing you're doing or why you're excited about it. That it will keep that good tension going. Yeah. Because you need a little good tension, a little good friction that, a new thing you're doing, I need to have some new synapse to take that in and be able to talk intelligently about it with you. I mean, that's good. That's really good, I think.
Yes, and let's put that in there. No, but yes, that's true. And there's also the understanding that sometimes somebody can be so I was going to say skittish is the wrong word, but the thing when they have so many different things all the time, they're never settling on one thing or doing anything with follow through. There's an extreme you want to necessarily not go to. So yes, bringing in new ideas to the relationship, bringing new things that you love doing to your partner is great. But it's a new thing every 5 minutes. That's going to be overwhelming. So let's be clear. There's an upper limit to that.
Yes. So a happy medium where you're not just complacent about your personal life and your relationship life, and you're not wildly crazed in your personal life, that you have moments. You have moments of calm, you have moments of more excitement, and then you have the middle ground where, frankly, I'm happy to live between 4 and 7 a lot. I don't need 10s, and I've been to those minus zeros, and I just not want that anymore. So that you keep a balance. And part of keeping the balance is occasionally, whatever your comfort level is, to try something new on your own or together, so that you do have something else to talk about along with the tried and true stuff. I mean, I think that's what certainly the couples that I've seen, my brother and sister-in-law, and then my friend that I go riding with this morning, who's going to be married 60 years this year, that's been such a key to those two couples that I see a lot. I mean, I see them together. I hear about their relationship a lot. So I have kind of this front row seat with my popcorn to see how they have balanced this out over all these many years. And a lot of it is these pieces where they started. So the thing is, neither couple started out polar opposites. They really didn't. And they really were different in a whole bunch of ways and had some different goals, some really core similar goals. So I was trying to think of the people I know that could have started out with really different polar opposite goals and dreams. And how do you work that out? Because that is part of the crux of this conversation, that if you aren't too opposite in too many things, you can sort of keep navigating as long as you don't just say, no, thank you, because that's so different from me. But
Right.
wow, if you really are polar opposite, it might be that it isn't going to work. So, oh, sure. We'd love to see the comment. Thank you, Mr. Silver. Hi, Judy. I feel opposites can work, but exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. You have to understand that if your partner is willing to change, you should be accepting to change somewhat as well. Oh, that's such a good comment. If you feel you care/love someone, you have to work on it and be open-minded. And it looks like there might be more to the sentence. Yes, Judy and I are good buds on Facebook, and we love being rowdy on Facebook, actually. And she's in a very happy relationship. And boy, compromise and negotiation, that is the ticket. That when you have some really key opposites, how much is the relationship worth it? How mired are you in whatever this opposite thing is? And how much can each of you move closer to the other person? And can both people get to a place where they go, it's good enough. What you've done is good enough. I haven't given up too much. What I've given up seems worth it. I haven't given up too much. It seems worth it. And we're close enough.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even have to be the same a lot. And to accept the other person, that especially if they've made the effort, especially if they've gone, I can see that's really hard for you that I do that, or I say that, or I act that way. Oh, yeah, I really see. Could I do something about that? What do I think? Yeah. How am I going to do something about that? Am I going to take a seminar? Am I going to go to therapy? Am I just going to decide I'm going to stop being this way because it's really hard on our relationship? And what am I gaining? I mean, that's the other part of the conversation. What do I gain to stay stubbornly in this way? And often what I found with the things I gave up that I was really stubborn about, they weren't necessarily making my life happier, and my life was a lot happier when I came closer to what the other person's needs were. Oh boy, that is such a good point, Judy. Thank you so much. And what do you think about that, Barry?
Well, a couple of things. Yes, I agree. And there's a couple of things that came up for me was because sometimes one person's dreams and goals aren't additive to the relationship. And so you got to have a clear, again, boundaries talked about earlier, is know what does work. Because if the person decides that they want to go climb a mountain for 6 months and be out of your life that long, that might be a deal breaker for the relationship. You know, if it's going to be going away for a week to go on on a meditation retreat in the mountains on their own because they want to do it separately, that can be really cool because it can bring back, because the chemistry piece, that polarity piece is when one of the partners goes away for a week to do something. Oftentimes when they come back, it's renewed and revamped and increased the attraction, which is great. So there's definitely going to be a spectrum or a scale of these things that work and don't work. And one of those things also can be when one partner has like a hobby to make crocheting with one of your friends, the other partner may have like, that's your thing, that's fine, you go do your own thing, and I'm good with that, which again is all good too. But if it's something that can be distracting from the relationship, or it's even pulling them away from the relationship, you've really got to decide if that's going to work or not. Because the thing is that the polarity piece, again, is what keeps you together, what adds to the relationship, what makes the relationship thrive, and for you both to be really enjoying yourselves together. And sometimes it can be spending time apart, doing certain things that work, and then come back together to confer, to add on, to grow together, to learn together. And there also are certain cases, and I know for myself, when I was in a relationship, sometimes when we did things together, they were really fun because we got to share the experience and share the debrief afterwards. So there's all different flavors for this. But it's also, again, I said earlier about the couples that live together, work together, all those different things. Most people do need time apart, even if it's just for half an hour or for a day, to go do their own thing, because rebooting chemistry, as I've shared in another episode about talking about that before, sometimes each partner needs to do something to renew their chemistry, to recharge their juices, so to speak. So
Yeah.
there's, again, a spectrum we're talking about here of what works, what doesn't work, and what's in between that. And I feel like the idea of having additive skills you bring to the relationship, because one crossed my mind was, well, one simple thing oftentimes is that one partner, might pick up a new book they're reading that's so fascinating, the other person, well, I want to read that too. So it becomes an additive experience, not massively transformational necessarily in terms of going out and do something big in the world. Because another dream could be, if they have different dreams, for example, one partner wants to get a house in the mountains, and the other partner wants to get a house by the ocean. Now, maybe you want to get 2 houses. I don't know, but it's the sense of having what is your spectrum of goals and dreams you want to have, and do the other person's goals and dreams complement, match, contrast, work together, or they just totally work together at all? So it's good to know.
And to continue on that, though, that when one person, say, goes on a retreat for the week, and you've talked about it ahead of time, this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go there because of this, and this is why it's going to be good for me and what I'm going to bring back to the relationship. Then the person who's not going on the retreat goes, okay, what am I going to do that week? What fun things that's more fun for me than it is for that person, and I'm going to go do them, or I'm going to go do stuff with friends, or I'm going to go on a retreat of my own. And then what's so good is that you both are refreshed and renewed and have more information that you bring back to the relationship. And you have to talk about it. And both people have to say, okay.
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a committed, monogamous, long-term relationship, one person can't be a no. If one person's a no, then you can't do it and stay in the relationship. I'm sorry. That is a big, hard thing that my couples sometimes like, really? I go, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if they're just being difficult and obstinate, then we need to talk about why you're staying in this relationship if they're just difficult and obstinate. If they have a really good reason for them, it's a really good reason to them, we need to go through that good reason before you go off and do this thing that you want to do, because their no it has to count. It has to count when you're in a relationship together. Yeah. And oh boy, those are interesting conversations.
Aren't they just? Aren't they just?
Yes. So keeping yourself interesting and motivated and excited about things. Now, as I've talked about my friends in Texas that, they were atheist and agnostic, and all of a sudden, way into their marriage, he decided to go back to his Christian Science religion. I mean, that's a huge opposite from who he was and who she still is. And they were like, ooh, how are we going to do that? But he's like, I'm doing it by myself. You don't have to come. It's not going to include you, and it's not going to change anything, how I feel or what I'm doing. And she's like, okay. And it's now been going on for 10 years, 8 years at least. And it's been fine. There's been but there was a tiny blip, and now it's perfectly, couldn't be better. And she says, I still don't get it at all because it's so not me. I get how satisfying it is for him. I see how it's made him, in a way that she can't even put words to, an even better husband, because he's doing something that's so important to fill this place inside of him that not one tiny bit does it take away, and she feels like it adds. And that's the ticket. That's where you have to say that both people feel like they win. Yeah.
That is such a key component for the whole point, is that because what your partner does or doesn't do might not fit what you want, but who they become because of doing it makes them better for you in the long term, way more powerful and way more impactful for you in a good way. That's this conversation, we're covering different parts to make sure we emphasize they're not just talking about physical things, we're talking about the mental, emotional, and spiritual as well. That there are things that couples do individually within the relationship on any one of those levels or all those levels at the same time that can be wonderfully different and added to the relationship, or wonderfully different and subtracted from the relationship. So it's clear to know what it is. And like you said earlier about having the conversation, talking about these things before you do some of these adventures, in quotes, is such a useful and frankly vital thing for the relationship to be healthy. Because if you do something out of the blue, if you're hoping the relationship is going to be stable afterwards, you may be surprised because you haven't been well, for one thing, you haven't been a weight to the relationship if you've been so busy doing something outside. But it's about having the wherewithal to say, you know what, I'm looking at doing this. Let me talk to my partner and make sure that they are on the same page, understand what I'm doing is for me, but also for the relationship. Or either it's for me and it will not be detractive to the relationship, which is even that's the bare minimum. It's like, yeah, doing something yourself doesn't pull away from the relationship, then it's a good thing, or not a bad thing rather. So having that conversation is a cornerstone to making it work, because relationships, as we talked about in other episodes, do require communication.
First, communicating with yourself about what it is that I need and want, what's important to me, what kind of plans do I have for my future. And what I suggest to people, is once a year, a couple times a year, come up with, what are your goals and dreams for the next year or the next 5 years.
Yeah.
And then you have your meetings every week about how we doing with all of that. And I've told people, say something outrageous. You never know what the other person might say. You never know. They might go, I've never thought of that. When I moved in here, I had all these boxes, and there's a thing called Nextdoor where you can put stuff on that you're selling or giving away. And I was giving away my boxes, and this couple showed up that had met online, and he was a farrier, a horseshoer, and worked all over the United States, and she was retired. So they bought a motorhome, and she sold her house, and he rented out his house. But when they on their first date, they were like, what would be your best dream? What would you I'd love to travel around the United States in motorhome. No way. I'd like to try. I mean, they were telling me this story as they're loading up the boxes in their car. And I go, well, how terrific that you met each other, because I wouldn't like it. And how nice that you met somebody that liked that. But they were so excited. But it was like, oh, I'm so nervous to say this really big, weird thing. But the other was like, oh, that's so me too. And they were just sparkly about it. I think it was the best. It was really fun to meet them. So that's the thing that, yeah, you could be nervous and you might not get it at all, or not the way you're thinking. At least say as you're getting to know each other. And then as you have this yearly meeting about what are we going to do next in our lives, say something outrageous, let's, rent a motorhome, or let's get a beach house, or let's learn another language. My brother and sister-in-law took Tai Chi until COVID shut it down. And when one of them brought it up, they went, oh, I've been wanting to do that too. I mean, they'd been married a really long time before COVID. And they were like, oh, yeah, I want to do that. So open your mind and then open your mouth, because you never know what somebody might go, well, I wouldn't want to do it like that, but I'd like to do it like this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because the other thing is that we very rarely, in fact, if ever, tell our partner everything we want to do in life and everything we've got goals. They're just stuff that's buried in the back somewhere, like in the closet we haven't thought about talking about, stuck in the attic. So when our partner says something to us that wakens that little part inside, that's just a great gift too. What you said, I absolutely concur with, is be willing to say something about it to your partner, because you might discover that what you're wanting to do is something they've been thinking about but put it aside 10 years ago and haven't thought about it since. And so your idea sparks their own agreement with that. So definitely is a cool thing to do, because again, we're talking about dreams and goals, and lots of times talking about doing things separately, but some of the dreams and goals can actually be what you both have been wanting to do but haven't talked about it yet. So having conversations about what if, or could we do this, can we explore new things, where both partners are kind of going, yeah, let's do this, can be so much fun. I mean, the idea of driving around this country, some people love that, some people don't. So finding somebody who does that with you is even better. So yeah, good to find things that work.
And haven't you heard, or maybe said, the people that are listening, they wouldn't want to do that. I already know they wouldn't want to do that.
Oh yeah.
Well, that's possible. It might be really possible if you've been together a long time and you know these people really well. Is there a harm in asking? Or asking at least, is there any way in the world? So is there any way in the world I would go in a motorhome? Yeah. The maximum I could imagine, it still gives me hives, is a month. I would try it for a month to see if I liked it. I'd be willing to give it a month. I'd have to have lots of creature comforts, but I would consider it for a month. So there I am saying, I've been saying forever. I mean, you've all heard me say, oh my God, I don't camp. I don't sleep around. I only
Right.
have to have a hotel, blah, blah, blah. I mean, how many times have I said that? Everybody goes, oh, Christine would never do that. But okay, I'd have a conversation. I'm not saying I'm climbing in a motorhome tomorrow. I'm saying I'd have a conversation about it. I
Yeah.
really would have a conversation about it. It'd have to be that somebody was really happy being with a lot. But you don't know till you ask.
Mm-hmm.
Ask. And then say, is there any way you would ever consider doing something like this, anything like this? You know, have this as a goal, have this as a dream, and then have them say the same thing. Here's the thing
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking, and would you ever? Or would you just support me doing it? That's the other thing. Would you support me going bungee jumping? Well, that's nothing I would never do, but I would take pictures. I would cheer. I'd have snacks at the other end. I would be the best audience, but that I can say never.
Yeah.
But if they were really excited about it and they needed to go train, so that's the other thing. My nephew, you know, I've talked about my nephew, the mountain climber, and he went to base camp at Mount Everest a number of years ago. His girlfriend, who tells everybody she doesn't walk. I mean, she walks, but she doesn't walk. She doesn't
Mm-hmm.
run. They're going to go to base camp together in
Wow.
April. I know. They announced it. We all went, what?
Something
So
changed.
she says, you know, it's not really climbing. It's mostly walking. And I said, but you don't walk. She goes, I've decided I walk. Because
There you
he gets so much joy out of doing it.
go. Mm-hmm.
And she's now gone to his marathon. She doesn't run at his marathons, but she's there to cheer. And she's like, I want to watch him do this. I want to
Mm-hmm.
be with him when he does this. And I'm like, so there, I mean, they've been together for 8 years. And she's not gone on one climb. And now she's going to go to the base camp of Mount Everest. We're all like, so I'm telling you, say it. You never know. It's because he didn't ask her. He's just been
Right.
talking about, I really want to go again. And would you ever? And she's like, yeah, maybe. See, you never know.
Surprise, surprise. That's the
Oh, I
thing. That's
know.
such a joy in that not knowing in a way, because that's the thing is we make assumptions about our partners. We make so much about life in general, period. But the trap we fall into is we don't actually know what our partner thinks. And so we make up assumptions and beliefs about what they're going to say without them even saying it. So to be a willing participant in the exploration and being willing to be surprised is one of the biggest gifts you can bring in a relationship as well. It's a great thing to have with your partner, where you do present ideas as a question or as an interaction to find out what they want to do, but also are you interested in what you really want to do? And are you willing to go that deep and find it for yourself? As you said before, about talking to yourself first, is are you willing to go inside and ask yourself, what do I really want to do? And then, and his thing, what do I really want to do, regardless of myself or in partnership? And then let my partner inform me what they want. Do they have a similar or a diametrically opposed opinion? Because we don't know that yet. And yes, they may drop hints about something, but until you actually can really directly ask them, they may go, no, that's not true. What I really want is this. Like the thing with bungee jumping, you know, I mean, I've jumped out of a plane before, which to me sounds a lot safer than bungee jumping.
Me too.
As crazy as it sounds. Because the thing of bungee jumping is, what if the rubber band's longer than the drop? You know, that sort of thing. At least the parachute, you got a parachute. At least with you know, jumping out of a plane, you have a parachute attached.
And
And I know
two.
that. Yes, the backup chute, the main chute.
Yeah.
The thing is that I've done that once back in the 80s. Haven't done it since. So, and I have a friend of mine. She was in a aerobatic team. So she's got like 1,500 jumps under her belt. And so for her, it's like, just getting in the car and driving somewhere. It's that convenient. It's like she's done it so many times. It's like it's automatic, and that's not my style at all. But the thing is, being around somebody who's never got off the ground in any way, shape, or form, part of me goes, no, you got to live a little, stretch, and try new things. And so, having that experience under my belt, if someone wants to go bungee jumping, like you, I would happily watch them. I don't have no desire to go on it myself. If they can jump out of a plane, I might be tempted to do it again, but I don't have to. So it's like knowing what we're open to and available to, but also what we bring to the conversation. And for me, one of the things I have in my list of when I'm in a relationship is a partner who's got a passport, because I've lived in the States for a long, long time, but I've had a passport since I was a teenager, and I've lived in 4 countries and traveled other places too. So having a partner who's at least got that under their awareness, not so much that that they're going to go travel all the time, but the fact they have that key to the door to possibility of exploring. So they might want to be open to travel somewhere else. And yes, in fact, somebody who has this, I remember when I was in high school, is to be with somebody who has traveled more than, lived out of state from their family. Because growing up in England, I remember one of my classmates, she got married when she was 16 and married to the guy who lived down the street from her and never left the place she grew up in. Her view of the world was like a 3-mile radius. And I'm like, no, that's not me. So knowing what it is that is important to you and having a worldview as part of my definitely come from another country, I definitely have an international viewpoint of what life is. Be with somebody who doesn't know anything beyond the boundaries of their small circle of the neighborhood wouldn't work for me. So if they're open to learn, we could talk. So that's again, like they're being open to possibilities. So having that awareness that when you bring an experience to somebody else, they may not be on the same level as you, or they may supersede you, is part of the joy of what dating's about.
Boy, yes, the joy. Instead of people go, oh, it's work and it's drudgery and I'm so worried about getting rejected.
It's too different. Working, yeah.
Yes, we're so often, if you go into dating, meeting new people with, well, here's some dreams and goals I have, and bring out your most outrageous ones and ask them for their most outrageous ones. I mean, they might be super different and super far apart, and you go, yeah, I could never do that, but wow, tell me more about why you would want to go to bungee jumping. I think it's a crazy thing to do. Yeah, because there's not a backup cord. That's the thing. I'm like,
yeah.
But I've known 3 people. I've watched 3 people do it and thought, oh my God. And so to ask, how fun to go, yeah, boy, tell me all about it because I would never do it. I want to hear the whole experience. Or not bungee jump, but something else of like, gosh, I never thought of that. Well, that's an interesting thing. Tell me more about that because maybe I'd want to look into that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go into it with an open heart and an open mind about listening to what the other person's dreams and goals are, even if they're different from yours. So I'm going to touch the 2 third rails that we have in dating of religion and politics, and where people go, I'm not going to even talk to somebody who voted for fill in the blank.
Yep.
Ask them why. Without yelling and explaining to them every 5 seconds while they're wrong. Mm-hmm. If anything, it'll just solidify why you like the person you do. At least ask why. Please ask why. Ask them if they can back it up. Because what I want to hear from people in my personal life is, why do you believe that? Not just because you read it on Facebook, not just because you heard it on the news. What research have you done? Because either, generally, I go, wow, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I'll look into that more. Maybe that'll move me a little. Or, yeah, boy, I knew that. And that was one of the reasons I do believe the way I believe. Mm-hmm. And to keep your ire and your self-righteousness at a minimum on these 2 third rail subjects. And I'm not saying you need to be with somebody that's a different political belief or a different religion. I just think dating would be easier. The world could be a little more gentle if people would just go, tell me why. I'm so curious because it's not at all what I've heard or believe. And then I'll tell you what I believe. And if people could have civilized conversations, just those 2 subjects, the rest of them would be so much easier. Don't you think, Barry, if they could just talk about those 2 things some of the time?
I absolutely agree with you. I'm going to speak to both of them for a second. First, on the political side, I have a baseball cap I wear that's from a show that has the slogan on the front from the show that I listened to on the radio. And the show is a political show. And it's called Left, Right, and Center because it covers all the bases. And it's on NPR. But the slogan for the show is civilized yet provocative. The idea being is that you're having conversations that may challenge you, but they're not argumentative or naysaying or demeaning or anything like that. They're just simply saying, this is my viewpoint. Oh, this is my viewpoint. I see where you're coming from. We don't agree, and that's okay. Because yes, this may not be what you're going to be in a relationship with somebody like that, but at least you do have the ability to have healthier relationships with people in general because you're not blaming, judging, and persecuting those people because they're wrong. I had to come up with somebody recently where I just started looking through that lens and went, hang on a second, why am I looking through that lens? Because they have that belief system. I don't know why they do. I'm making an assumption. That's not healthy. This is one piece. So that's the political side. Yes, I'm learning on this one myself. The religious side, and I had this conversation actually at a house party. Someone had an open house for their kid's birthday last Sunday. And we're sitting around talking, and a bunch of the people in that group are from a certain teaching I have not been part of. And I come from a Jewish background I was raised with, but I've been in a spiritual path for 40 plus years. So I'm definitely consider myself to be outside the religious conversation. And so I'm listening to these different viewpoints, none of which are mine, but they're all interesting because they add value because where they're coming from. And I went off from my perspective, not to say theirs is wrong, mine's different. And it becomes an interesting conversation. So we actually had a great time having a discussion. We weren't converting anybody to anybody else. We weren't judging the other person as right, wrong. We're just saying that's yours. Oh, that's mine. This is different. And so I actually agree with you. Having civil conversation that can be different and opposite can be something that can be challenging when you're dating, because it's sometimes where you're dating, you got to find exactly the right match. And what we're talking about today really are key points about, can you be open to yes and, open to possibility, open to hearing a viewpoint different to yours, or something you never even thought of, because it might spark something joyful inside yourself as well. So this topic it can be far reaching for sure. So hopefully this has reached some people with some good value as well.
I'm hoping so. And what our intention really is with this is to give you some possibility, some optimism, because so often the opposite feels unhinged and impossible, and you can't navigate it at all. And what we're giving you is tools and different ways of thinking and looking at it and talking about it that give you an opportunity to say whatever. You could say, interesting. Well, I don't agree at all. Well, I could think a different way, or we could think differently and be fine with that. I mean, you really can do that. I've seen people do that. I've seen people with different political views, with different religions. It can work. It really can. It doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. I love and. You can believe this, and I can believe this, and we can live harmoniously. Because the other underlying thing that I think is essential is that you have some really key core things that you're moving together. You've got it. You have, when you have talk about what your dreams and goals are, that you have enough that are the same, enough that are complementary. That if you have some opposites, we're telling you it can add some spice, it can add some interest, it can help you think about something you've never done before, or you could just say, "Oh, hun, go have fun and come back and tell me all about it," and it can make your relationship more rich. But to complete opposites, I think it would be too much work for me. I don't think I could have a complete opposite person in a lot of areas. That would be too hard. I like having some opposite things for sure. I look for that. But that you're definite, your morals, your core values, the things that are important to you to run your life, the way that you approach the world, that doesn't have anything to do with who you voted for. I mean, that's the thing. Kind of, for me, it's been frustrating because it feels like it's gotten too muddy. That it's much more clear about what's your moral reason for this. Yeah.
And that's that actually that point of morality I want to speak to for a second too. I know we can wrap up the show in a moment. Is the understanding that we're talking here about qualities of moral authority in a way, being true to yourself, having autonomy, and also being respectful of yourself and your other person. I talked about boundaries early on. That's the other part too, is that when you're with somebody else, if they steamroll your boundaries to prove their point, that isn't healthy. Same thing with religion or politics or any of those things, because they can become such the blue touch paper that lights off the firework is not good. So definitely having a place where you can converse and dialogue. But clearly, if you want to be in a relationship with somebody, you don't pick the most opposite person you can find. You want to find somebody who you have interesting sparks with. And yes, the opposite piece is what can be very exciting and very attractive. As I mentioned about polarity in a relationship, that creates the chemistry that creates the attraction. So you don't want to be with somebody who's only the same. You don't want to be with somebody who's only the opposite. You've got to find the right middle ground, the right mix of green flags, and then no red flags. So yeah, absolutely possible.
Middle ground. Yes,
Hmm.
I love that. I love that idea because middle ground's really big. You can have lots of room to move back and forth, and you aren't exactly together. You have all this room. Just look at what the opposite things are and that they only add to your relationship and none of them take away. That's
Yeah,
the thing to always have the litmus test.
there you go.
So if that's happened to you in your life and you've like, oh my God, I've been with people that are just so the same, or all I do is pick people that are really opposite. I'm not sure how to do middle ground. That's why Barry and I are here, and we're happy to help you find the middle ground. None of that's boring either. Barry and I are not boring, and we don't coach boring, and nothing's boring. No boring.
Agreed. Yes.
We're all into spice and scintillation for sure. So if you want to get hold of me, the best way is through my website, which is www.theperfectcatch.com. And you can click on what's holding you back from love, and you filled out a brief questionnaire, and then it gives you access to my online calendar. So you can make a complimentary conversation with me at your convenience. You can also join my newsletter where you'll get a repeat of this podcast and then other exciting things that I'm putting out there. And then you can also click on all the links to my social media. They're at the bottom of my website. So there's all the little symbols for Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram, X and YouTube and Pinterest. And I think, and I don't remember. What's the other
Threads.
one? Threads. Yes, sorry. For little tech person threads.
Yeah.
And then you can also send me an email at Christine@theperfectcatch.com. And how would people reach you, Mr. Barry?
Well, similarly to Christine, I have a few things you can definitely reach me at. My website is my name, which is barryselby.com. So you definitely go there. On homepage, there's a link at the top to get a discovery session with me. So you click on that and it gives you a little form to fill out and a link to my calendar so you can set up a conversation with me and we can talk about what's going on for you, where you are, where you want to go, if I can help you. I do say if because I can't guarantee I can. At the bottom of the homepage, there is a link to my email list. You can say that you sign up, you can opt into my email list, which gives you access to my newsletter and special offers I send out every so often as well. On social media, my name is my handle on all platforms except for Instagram. Instagram and Threads is the real Barry Selby because that's the one that got changed. But if you're looking for anywhere else, it's Barry Selby on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on YouTube. I have tons of videos on X, formerly Twitter, on Pinterest as well. I think it's all the platforms. And if you want to email me, you can send an email to barry@barryselby.com. And definitely, if you have any questions, oh, and by the way, I forgot to mention, I do have my quiz available. So if you're not sure if you're ready for a relationship, thank you for putting that up. You can definitely check out my relationship readiness assessment because basically it's a quiz of questions that will help you navigate. Are you really ready for love? You're ready for a relationship? So do the quiz, which is at barryselby.com/quiz, and you'll find out for yourself.
And we talked about how we're on the social media platforms, so you can watch us on Roku and on Apple TV. And then you can also take us with you. We're very portable on Spotify and Apple, and you can take us shopping and to the gym and when you're working out. And please also like and share our podcast. Share it with your friends. Subscribe to our pages. We'd be so grateful. And we're always here live on Thursday at 1 o'clock Pacific and 4 o'clock Eastern and all the times in between. And Barry, you were going to say something else.
Just going to say, I like to think about the podcast and the video as being two different things. Basically, the podcast, which is an Apple Podcast, Google, everywhere else, Spotify, you can take with you when you're out driving or exercising or going shopping, whatever you're doing. If you want to watch us on Facebook or YouTube or on the other platforms, just sit down and watch. So decide how you want to view us. You can sit and watch us or take us with you. It's your choice.
It's a menu. You can choose a variety of ways to take us in.
Indeed. Yes.
Well, thank you so much for watching today. And for Judy, who wrote, I just adore her. And we will look forward to seeing you all next week. Bye
Indeed.
for now.
Take care of yourself. Bye.